I apologize. Give me a second here. Let me figure out what to do with all of this. And we'll put this like here. And then, okay, I'm gonna move that down. And I don't know if anybody is here right now, if anybody can hear me. I'm a little late today because just filing taxes, you know. Let me adjust that. Let me adjust it a little bit more like that. Oh, all right. Oh, I'm at the chat feature. That way, if anyone does talk, oh no. Daiki, what are you doing over there? Oh. Ow. Got something in my sock. Hey, you. Oh, yeah. Got it. So, I don't know if anybody's on here. I go for walks in the morning, and recently we've been going out at the wash, and there's these little seeds that produce like these little weeds that produce these pods that create seeds that you can see that they get stuck in my socks, and then they poke me. So I got like several of them. I just gotta take these out right now. There we go. Okay, I think I got them all out. Now, I'm going to put a sock back on because if I do, shift over, I don't want you guys seeing my hobbit feet. I'm sure there's a market for hobbit feet, but I don't want you guys seeing it. I don't know if anyone is on here right now. Is anybody on, like, watching this right now? I'm just curious because, I don't know if you are. I don't know if you'll be able to hear me because it's really far away. Like the phone that I'm using is very far away, and I'm trying really hard to adjust this as well so that you can actually see. Ooh, slide that out. We're gonna plug this one in. Toto. Oh, no, nothing in there. Okay, never mind. Daiki, what are you doing over there? Move that down as much as possible. There we go. Daiki, coming over here? No? You're not coming over here? Alright, well, he is not coming over here. Like I said, I have no idea if anybody is seeing this or if you can even hear me because of how far the phone is from me. I don't know how good these microphones are, whether they pick up, how well they pick up sound. So if you can't hear me, please say something. If you're on here and you can, if you can't hear me, please say something. How would they even say something if they can't? Move this a little bit closer. I really am. I'm trying to figure out like the best angle for this because I want you to see my cat when he comes over. If he comes over, he's over here. He can't see me. You can't see him right now. But if he does come over, I'd like you to be able to see him. He's just sitting on my coffee table right now. And also, I want you guys to be able to hear me. So, about 4 minutes have passed. I said, I still don't know if anyone's actually watching. So, I'm just going to get started on my reading right now. We're reading The Lord of the Rings, Chapter 9. This is one of my older books, so it's actually a little broken. It's in rough shape. But I will be reading. If anyone is here and pops in, feel free to say hi. I'll try my best to respond to you, but for the most part, I will just be reading out loud. So, Chapter 9, At the Sign of the Prancing Pony. Bree was the chief village of the Breeland, a small inhabited region, like an island in the empty lands round about. Besides Bree itself, there was Stadel on the other side of the hill, Combe in a deep valley a little further eastward, and Archet on the edge of the Chetwood. Lying round Bree Hill and the villages was a small country of fields and tamed woodland, only a few miles abroad. The men of Bree were brown-haired, broad. Peak. You a Lord of the Rings fan, bro? Diane, also welcome. Good to see you here. The men of Bree were brown-haired, broad, and rather short, cheerful and independent. They belonged to nobody but themselves. Oh, just for the cat. Yeah, Daiki has a lot of aura. He's my aura farmer. Yeah, he's my little Rizzler cat. He's got the Riz, the aura. He likes to mew. He does it all. Oh, we can't actually see him right here. Here we go. Look at that. I'm trying. Oh, I think that's fine. That's fine. We got this. Yeah, you see that? You can see him a little bit. But they were more friendly and familiar with hobbits, dwarves, elves, and other inhabitants of the world about them than was, or is, usual with big people. According to their own tale... What are you doing? According to their own tales, they were the original inhabitants, and were descendants of the first men that ever wandered into the west of the middle world. Few had survived the turmoils of the elder days, but when the kings returned again over the great sea, they found the Breemen still there. And they were still there now, when the memory of the old kings had faded into grass. Somehow I ended up being charged by Amazon Prime through your mom's account. What did you do? How did you get charged by Amazon? For what? Also, welcome, Raven. I'm glad you're with us. In those days, no other men had settled dwellings so far west, or within 100 leagues of the Shire. But in the wild lands beyond Bree, there were mysterious wanderers. The Bree folk called them rangers, and knew nothing of their origin. They were taller and darker than the men of Bree, and were believed to have strange powers of sight and hearing, and to understand the languages of beasts and birds. They roamed at will southwards and eastwards, even as far as the misty mountains. But they were now few and rarely seen. When they appeared, they brought news from afar, and told strange, forgotten tales, which were eagerly listened to. But the Bree folk did not make friends with them. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So each of you has your own card under your mom's account. But did you, I'm assuming you bought something through the account and that's why you were charged, or did you not buy something? There were also many families of hobbits in the Breeland, and they claimed to be the oldest settlements of hobbits in the world. one that was founded long before even the Brandywine was crossed and the Shire colonized. They lived mostly in Stottle, though there were some in Bree itself, especially on the higher slopes of the hill, above the house of the men. The big folk and the little folk, as they called one another, were on friendly terms, minding their own affairs in their own ways, but both rightly regarding themselves as necessary parts of the Bree folk. Nowhere else in the world was this peculiar but excellent arrangement to be found. I wonder how well you all can see my cat. Ah, your mom has Prime. That's why then. Do it like that. Do it like that. I'm turning the chat feature up also so I can actually see what y'all are seeing. Ah! Huh. It's hard to press buttons when you're so far away. Boy. There we go. I'm trying my best. Like, I need him here because he's got all... Daiki has all my Riz. So give me just a second. I'm going to adjust this as best I can so that y'all can get that cat Riz. I wonder. You know what? I do think my table that I'm using right here can lower. Hang on one second. Whoop. Sorry, Daiki. I know you were comfortable. Give me just a second. We're going to adjust this table by a few sizes. Can we do this? Hang on. Ugh. There we go. Okay, it does lower. Oh. I think that'll work. Yeah, I think that's a much better, much better view. Lower, too. We can bring this on over here like this. There. Oh, wait. There. Okay. See that? Now you can see the cat. Now that you've got the Riz, we're gonna start reading again. If at any point in time you cannot hear me, please let me know, and I will speak louder. Whoop. Hang on. There we go. Sorry, dirty sock. The Bree folk, big and little, did not themselves travel much, and the affairs of the 4 villages were their chief concern. Occasionally, the hobbits of Bree went as far as Buckland or the East Farthing. But though their little land was not much farther than a day's riding east of the Brandywine Bridge, the hobbits of the shires seldom visited it. An occasional Bucklander or adventurous took would come out of the inn for a night or two, but even that was becoming less and less usual. The Shire hobbits referred to those of Bree, and to any others that lived beyond the borders, as outsiders, and took very little interest in them, considering them dull and uncouth. There were probably many more outsiders scattered about in the west of the world in those days than the people of the Shire imagined. Still laughing about the Mihono Bourbon Falls Nest. Seems like a good mod. Also, Joseph Joestar. Oh, gomen. Nihongo wakanai. Oh. Hey. Hey! Don't bite me. Thank you. Hetayo. Hetsuyo. Hetsuyo? O. Wa. I'm trying to read the Japanese, and I'm struggling. That's so small. Yes, cat. His name's Daiki. Daiki desu. Boku no neko wa Daiki desu. It's a bit of a biter, though. Alright, there we go. So, I'm just reading, so if you want to stick with me, please feel free to stick around. A little ASMR. So. Daiki-kun. Oh. Arigatou gozaimasu. So, I'm assuming you've got a Japanese keyboard on your phone. I'm assuming you're on your phone and not on on a keyboard or a PC. Where was I? Right. Some, doubtless, were no better than tramps, ready to dig a hole in any bank and stay only as long as it suited them. But in the Bree land, at any rate, the hobbits were decent and prosperous, and no more rustic than most of their distant relatives inside. It was not yet forgotten that there had been a time when there was much coming and going between the Shire and Bree. There was Bree blood in the Brandybucks, by all accounts. The village of Bree had some 100 stone houses of the big folk, mostly above the road, nestling on the hillside with windows looking west. On that side, running in more than half a circle from the hill and back to it, there was a deep dike with a thick hedge on the inner side. Over this the road crossed by a causeway, but where it pierced the hedge it was barred by a great gate. There was another gate in the southern corner of the road, where the road ran out of the village. The gates were closed at nightfall, but just inside them were small lodges for the gatekeepers. Iwa iwa Togo. Iwa Togo. I don't know what that. What is that? What's that word? Iwa. That's a little Iwawe Togo. I don't know. You need to translate the Doll's Nest album since it's one of the many writing languages for the Japanese. You should definitely do that. Down on the road, where it swept to the right to go round the foot of the hill, there was a large inn. It had been built long ago, when the traffic on the roads had been far greater. For Bree stood at an old meeting of ways. Another ancient road crossed the east road, just outside the dike at the western edge of the village. And in former days, Men and other folk of various sorts had traveled much on it. Strange as news from Bree was, still a saying in the East Farthing, descending from those days when news from north, south, and east could be heard in the inn, and when the Shire hobbits used to go more often to hear it. But the northern lands had long been desolate, and the North Road was now seldom used. It was grass-grown, and the Bree folk called it the Greenway. The Inn of Bree was still there, however, and the innkeeper was an important person. His house was a meeting place for the idle, talkative, and inquisitive among the inhabitants, large and small, of the 4 villages, and a resort of rangers and other wanderers, and for such travelers, mostly dwarves, as still journeyed on the east road to and from the mountain. It was dark, and white stars were shining when Frodo and his companions came at last to the Greenway crossing and drew near the village. They came to the west gate and found it shut, but at the door of the lodge beyond it there was a man sitting. He jumped up and fetched a lantern and looked over the gate at them in surprise. I haven't seen you and your dad's donut joke yet, but I will be on Discord after reading this, and I'll check out the joke. What do you want? And where do you come from? He asked gruffly. We are making for the inn here, answered Frodo. We are journeying east and cannot go farther tonight. Hobbits! 4 hobbits! And what's more, out of the Shire by their talk, said the gatekeeper, softly as if speaking to himself. He stared at them darkly for a moment, and then slowly opened the gate and let them ride through. We don't often see Shire folk riding on the road at night, he went on, as they halted a moment by his door. You'll pardon my wondering what business takes you away east of Bree? What may your names be, might I ask? Our names and our business are our own, and this does not seem a good place to discuss them, said Frodo, not liking the look of the man or the tone of his voice. Your business is your own, no doubt, said the man, but it's my business to ask questions after nightfall. We are hobbits from Buckland, and we have a fancy to travel and to stay at the inn here, put in Merry. I am Mr. Brandybuck. Is that enough for you? The Bree folk used to be fair-spoken to travelers, or so I have heard. All right, said the man. I meant no offense, but you'll find maybe that more folk than old Harry at the gate will be asking you questions. There's queer folk about. If you go on to the pony, you'll find you're not the only guests. He wished them good night, and they said no more, but Frodo could see in the lantern light that the man was still eyeing them curiously. He was glad to hear the gate clang to behind them, as they rode forward. He wondered why the man was so suspicious, and whether anyone had been asking for news of a party of hobbits. Could it have been Gandalf? He might have arrived while they were delayed in the forest and the downs, but there was something in the look and the voice of the gatekeeper that made him uneasy. The man stared after the hobbits for a moment, and then he went back to his house. As soon as his back was turned, a dark figure climbed quietly in over the gate and melted into the shadows of the village street. The hobbits rode on up a gentle slope, passing a few detached houses, and drew up outside the inn. The houses looked large and strange to them. Sam stared up at the inn with its 3 stories and many windows, and felt his heart sink. He had imagined himself meeting giants taller than trees, and other creatures even more terrifying, some time or other in the course of his journey. But at the moment he was finding his first sight of men and their tall houses quite enough. Indeed, too much for the dark end of a tiring day. He pictured black horses standing all saddled in the shadows of the inn yard, and the black riders peering out of dark upper windows. I think he's asleep. "We surely aren't going to stay here for the night, are we, sir?" he exclaimed. "If there are hobbit folk in these parts, why don't we look for some that would be willing to take us in? It would be more homelike." "What's wrong with the inn?" said Frodo. "Tom Bombadil recommended it. I expect it's homelike enough inside." Even from the outside, the inn looked a pleasant house to familiar eyes. It had a front on the road and two wings running back on land, partly cut out of the lower slopes of the hill, so that at the rear, the second floor windows were level with the ground. There was a wide arch leading to a courtyard between the two wings, and on the left, under the arch, there was a large doorway reached by a few broad steps. The door was open, and light streamed out of it. Above the arch there was a lamp, and beneath it swung a large signboard. A fat, white pony reared up on its hind legs. Over the door was painted in white letters, "The Prancing Pony," by Barliman Butterbur. Many of the lower windows showed lights behind thick curtains. As they hesitated outside in the gloom, someone began singing a merry song inside, and many cheerful voices joined loudly in the chorus. They listened to this encouraging sound for a moment, and then got off their ponies. The song ended, and there was a burst of laughter and clapping. They led their ponies under the arch, and leaving them standing in the yard, they climbed up the steps. Frodo went forward and nearly bumped into a short, fat man with a bald head and a red face. He had a white apron on, and was bustling out of one door and in through another, a tray laden with full mugs. "Can we—" began Frodo. "Half a minute, if you please," shouted the man over his shoulder, and vanished into a babble of voices and a cloud of smoke. In a moment he was out again, wiping his hands on his apron. "Good evening, little master," he said, bending down. "What may you be wanting?" "Beds for 4, and a stable and stabling for 5 ponies, if that can be managed. Are you Mr. Butterbur?" "That's right. Barlaman is my name. Barlaman Butterbur, at your service." "You're from the Shire, eh?" he said, and then suddenly he clapped his hand to his forehead, as if trying to remember something. "Hobbits!" he cried. "Now what does that remind me of? Might I ask your names, sir?" "Mr. Took and Mr. Brandybuck," said Frodo, "and this is Sam Gamgee. My name is Underhill." "There now," said Mr. Butterbur, snapping his fingers. "It's gone again, but it'll come back when I have the time to think. I'm run off my feet, but I'll see what I can do for you. We don't often get a party out of the Shire these days, and I should be sorry not to make you welcome. But there is such a crowd already in the house tonight, so there hasn't been long enough. It never rains, but it pours, we say in Bree." "Hi, Nob," he shouted. "Where are you, you woolly-footed slow-coach? Nob!" "Coming, sir, coming!" A cheery-looking hobbit bobbed out of a door, and seeing the travelers, stopped short and stared at them with great interest. "Where's Bob?" asked the landlord. "You don't know? Well, find him, double sharp. I haven't got 6 legs nor 6 eyes neither. Tell Bob there's 5 ponies that have to be stabled. You must find room somehow. Nob trotted off with a grin and a wink. Well now, what was I going to say? Said Mr. Butterbur, tapping his forehead. One thing drives out another, so to speak. I'm that busy tonight, my head is going round. There's a party that came up the Greenway from down south last night, and that was strange enough to begin with. Then there's a traveling company of dwarves going west come in this evening. And now there's you. If you weren't hobbits, I doubt we could house you. But we've got a room or two in the north wing that were made special for hobbits when this place was built. On the ground floor, as they usually prefer, round windows and all, as they like it. I hope you'll be comfortable. You'll be wanting supper, I don't doubt, as soon as may be. This way now. He led them a short way down a passage. I lost my place. Give me a sec. He led them a short way down a passage and opened a door. Here is a nice little parlor, he said. I hope it will suit. Excuse me now, I'm that busy. No time for talking. I must be trotting. It's hard work for 2 legs, but I don't get thinner. I'll look in again later. If you want anything, ring the handbell, and Nob will come. If you don't come, ring and shout. Off he went at last, and left them feeling rather breathless. He seemed capable of an endless stream of talk, however busy he might be. They found themselves in a small and cozy room. There was a bit of bright fire burning on the hearth, and in front of it were some low and comfortable chairs. There was a round table already spread with a white cloth, and on it was a large handbell. But Nob, the hobbit servant, came bustling in long before they thought of ringing. He brought candles and a tray full of plates. Will you be wanting anything to drink, masters? He asked. And shall I show you the bedrooms while your supper is got ready? They were washed and in the middle of a good deep mugs of beer when Mr. Butterbur and Nobbs came in again. In a twinkling the table was laid. There was hot soup, cold meats, a blackberry tart, new loaves, slabs of butter, and half a ripe cheese. Good plain food, as good as the Shire could show, and home-like enough to dispel the last of Sam's misgivings, already much relieved by the excellence of the beer. The landlord hovered round for a little, and then prepared to leave them. I don't know whether you would care to join the company when you have supped, he said, standing at the door. Perhaps you would rather go to your beds. Still, the company would be very pleased to welcome you, if you had a mind. We don't get outsiders, travelers from the Shire, I should say, begging your pardon, often, and we like to hear a bit of news, or any story or song you may have in mind. But as you please, ring the bell if you lack anything. So refreshed and encouraged did they feel at the end of their supper, about 3/4 of an hour's already steady going, not hindered by unnecessary talk, that Frodo, Pippin, and Sam decided to join the company. Merry said it would be too stuffy. I shall sit here quietly by the fire for a bit, and perhaps go out later for a sniff of the air. Mind your P's and Q's, and don't forget that you are supposed to be escaping in secret, and are still on the high road, and not very far from the Shire. All right, said Pippin. Mind yourself. Don't get lost, and don't forget that it is safer indoors. The company was in the big common room of the inn. The gathering was large and mixed, as Frodo discovered, when his eyes got used to the light. This came chiefly from a blazing log fire, for the 3 lamps hanging from the beams were dim and half veiled in smoke. Barlaam Butterbur was standing near the fire, talking to a couple of dwarves and 1 or 2 strange-looking men. On the benches were various folk, men of Bree, a collection of local hobbits, sitting, chattering together, a few more dwarves, and other vague figures difficult to make out away in the shadows and corners. As soon as the Shire hobbits entered, there was a chorus of welcome from the Breelanders. The strangers, especially those that came up the greenway, stared at them curiously. The landlord introduced the newcomers to the Bree folk so quickly that, though they caught many names, they were seldom sure who the names belonged to. The men of Bree seemed all to have rather botanical, and to the Shire folk rather odd, names, like Rushlight, Goat Leaf, Heather Toes, Appledore, Thistlewood, and Ferny, not to mention Butterbur. Some of the hobbits had similar names. The Mugworts, for instance, seemed numerous, but most of them had natural names, such as Banks, Brockhouse, Longholes, Sandheaver, and Tunnelly, many of which were used in the Shire. There were several Underhills from Stottle, and as they could not imagine sharing a name without being related, they took Frodo to their hearts as a long-lost cousin. The Bree hobbits were, in fact, friendly and inquisitive, and Frodo soon found that some explanation of what he was doing would have to be given. He gave out that he was interested in history and geography, at which there was much wagging of heads, although neither of these words were much used in the Bree dialect. He said he was thinking of writing a book, at which there was silent astonishment, and that he and his friends wanted to collect information about hobbits living outside the Shire, especially in the eastern lands. At this, a chorus of voices broke out. If Frodo had really wanted to write a book, and had had many ears, he would have learned enough for several chapters in a few minutes, and if that was not enough, he was given a whole list of names, beginning with old Barlaman here to whom he could go further information. But after a time, as Frodo did not show any sign of writing a book on the spot, the hobbits returned to their questions about doings in the Shire. Frodo did not prove very communicative, and he soon found himself sitting alone in a corner, listening and looking around. The men and dwarves were mostly talking of distant events and telling news of a kind that was becoming only too familiar. There was trouble away in the south, and it seemed that the men who had come up the Greenway were on the move, looking for lands where they could find some peace. The Bree folk were sympathetic, but plainly not very ready to take a large number of strangers into their little land. One of the travelers, a squint-eyed, ill-favored fellow, was foretelling that more and more people would be coming north in the near future. If room isn't found for them, they'll find it for themselves. They have a right to live, same as other folk, he said loudly. The local inhabitants did not look pleased at the prospect. The hobbits did not pay much attention to all this, as it did not at the moment seem to concern hobbits. Big folk could hardly beg for lodgings in hobbit holes. They were more interested in Sam and Pippin, who were now feeling quite at home and were chatting gaily about events in the Shire. Pippin roused a good deal of laughter with an account of the collapse of the roof of the town hall in Mitchell Delving. Will Whitfoot, the mayor, and the fattest hobbit in the West Farthing, had been buried in chalk and came out like a floured dumpling. But there were several questions asked that made Frodo a little uneasy. One of the Breelanders, who seemed to have been in the Shire several times, wanted to know where the Underhills lived and who they were related to. Suddenly, Frodo noticed that a strange-looking, weather-beaten man, sitting in the shadows near the wall, was also listening intently to the hobbit talk. He had a tall tankard in front of him, and was smoking a long-stemmed pipe, curiously curved. His legs were stretched out before him, showing high boots of supple leather that fitted him well, but had seen much wear and were now caked with mud. A travel-stained cloak of heavy, dark green clothes was drawn close about him, and in spite of the heat of the room, he wore a hood that overshadowed his face. But the gleam of his eyes could be seen as he watched the hobbits. "Who is that?" Frodo asked, when he got the chance to whisper to Mr. Butterbur. "I don't think you introduced him." "Him?" said the landlord, in an answering whisper, cocking an eye without turning his head. "I don't rightly know. He is one of the wandering folk. Rangers, we call them. He seldom talks, not but what he can tell a rare tale when he has the mind. He disappears for a month or a year, and then he pops up again. He was in and out pretty often last spring, but I haven't seen him about lately. What his right name is, I've never heard, but he's known round here as Strider. Goes about it at a great pace on his long shanks, though he don't tell nobody what cause he has to hurry. But there's no accounting for east and west, as we say in Bree, meaning the Rangers and the Shire folk. Begging your pardon, funny you should ask about him." But at that moment Mr. Butterbur was called away by a demand for more ale, and his last remark remained unexplained. Frodo found that Strider was now looking at him, as if he had heard or guessed all that had been said. Presently, with a wave of his hand and a nod, he invited Frodo to come over and sit by him. As Frodo drew near, he threw back his hood, showing a shaggy head of dark hair flecked with gray, and in a pale, stern face a pair of keen gray eyes. "I'm called Strider," he said in a low voice. "I'm very pleased to meet you, Master Underhill, if old Butterbur got your name right." "He did," said Frodo stiffly. He felt far from comfortable under the stare of those keen eyes. "Well, Master Underhill," said Strider, "if I were you, I should stop your young friends from talking too much. Drink, fire, and chance meetings are pleasant enough, but, well, this isn't the Shire. They are queer folk about. Though I say it as shouldn't, you may think," he added with a wry smile, seeing Frodo's glance. "And there have been even stranger travelers through Bree lately," he went on, watching Frodo's face. Frodo returned his gaze but said nothing, and Strider made no further sign. His attention seemed suddenly to be fixed on Pippin. To his alarm, Frodo became aware that the ridiculous young Took, encouraged by his success with the fat mare of Michael Delving, was now actually giving a comic account of Bilbo's farewell party. He was already giving an imitation of the speech, and was drawing near to the astonishing disappearance. Frodo was annoyed. It was a harmless enough tale for most of the local hobbits, no doubt. Just a funny story about those funny people away beyond the river. But some, old Butterbur, for instance, knew a thing or two, and had probably heard rumors long ago about Bilbo's vanishing. It could bring the name of Baggins to their minds, especially if there had been earthquakes. Especially if there had been inquiries in Bree after that name. Sorry about that. I think I just spaced for a second. I did not get much sleep, by the way. I think I got like 2 or 3 hours last night. Frodo fidgeted, wondering what to do. Pippin was evidently much enjoying the attention he was getting, and had become quite forgetful of their danger. Frodo had a sudden fear that in his present mood he might even mention the ring, and that might well be disastrous. "You had better do something quick," whispered Strider in his ear. Frodo jumped up and stood on a table, and began to talk. The attention of Pippin's audience was disturbed. Some of the hobbits looked at Frodo and laughed and clapped, thinking that Mr. Underhill had taken as much ale as was good for him. Frodo suddenly felt very foolish, and found himself, as was his habit when making a speech, fingering the things in his pocket. He felt the ring on its chain, and quite unaccountably the desire came over him to slip it on and vanish out of the silly situation. It seemed to him, somehow, as if the suggestion came to him from outside, from someone or something in the room. He resisted the temptation firmly and clapped the ring in his hand, as if to keep hold on it and prevent it from escaping or doing any mischief. At any rate, it gave him no inspiration. He spoke a few subtle words, as they would have said in the Shire. "We are all very much grateful by the kindness of your reception, and I venture to hope that my brief visit will help to renew the old ties of friendship between the Shire and Bree." And then he hesitated and coughed. Everyone in the room was now looking at him. "A song!" shouted one of the hobbits. "A song! A song!" shouted all the others. "Come on now, master, sing us something that we haven't heard before." For a moment Frodo stood gaping. Then, in desperation, he began a ridiculous song that Bilbo had been rather fond of, and indeed rather proud of, for he had made up the words himself. It was about an inn, and that is probably why it came into Frodo's mind just then. Here it is in full. Only a few words of it are now, as a rule, remembered. "There is an inn, a merry old inn, beneath an old gray hill, and there they brew a beer so brown that the man in the moon himself came down one night to drink his fill. The ostler has a tipsy cat that plays a 5-stringed fiddle, and up and down he runs his bow, now squeaking high, now purring low, now sawing in the middle. The landlord keeps a little dog that is mighty fond of jokes. When there's good cheer among the guests, he cocks an ear at all the jests, and laugh until he chokes. They also keep a horned cow, as proud as any queen, but music turns her head like ale, and makes her wave her tufted tail, and dance upon the green. And oh, the rows of silver dishes, and the store of silver spoons, for Sunday there's a special pair, and these they polish up with care on Saturday afternoons. The man in the moon was drinking deep, and the cat began to wail. A dish and a spoon on the table danced. The cow in the garden madly pranced, and the little dog chased his tail. The man in the moon took another mug, and then rolled beneath his chair, and there he dozed and dreamed of ale, till in the sky the stars were pale, and dawn was in the air. Then the ostler said to his tipsy cat, "The white horses of the moon, they neigh and champ their silver bits, but the master's been drowned his wits, and the sun will be rising soon, So the cat on his fiddle played hey, diddle diddle, a jig that would wake the dead. He squeaked and sawed and quickened the tune, while the landlord shook the man in the moon. It's after 3, he said. They rolled the man slowly up the hill and bundled him into the moon, while his horses galloped in rear, and the cow came capering like a deer, and a dish ran up with a spoon. Now quicker the fiddle went, deedle-dum diddle. The dog began to roar. The cow and the horses stood on their heads. The guests all bounded from their beds and danced upon the floor. With a ping and a pong, the fiddle strings broke. The cow jumped over the moon, and the little dog laughed to see such fun, and the Saturday dish went off at a run with a silver Sunday spoon. The round moon rolled behind the hill as the sun raised up her head. She hardly believed her fiery eyes, for though it was day, to her surprise, they all went back to bed. There was a loud and long applause. Frodo had a good voice, and the song tickled their fancy. "Where's old Barley?" they cried. "You ought to hear this. Bob ought to learn his cat the fiddle, and then we'd have a dance." They called for more ale, and began to shout. "Let's have it again, master. Come on now, once more." They made Frodo have another drink, and then began his song again, while many of them joined in, for the tune was well known, and they were quick at picking up words. It was now Frodo's turn to feel pleased with himself. He capered about on the table, and when he came a second time to "The cow jumped over the moon," he leapt in the air, much too vigorously, for he came down, bang, into a tray of mugs and slipped, and rolled off the table with a clash, clatter, and bump. The audience all opened their mouths wide for laughter, and stopped short in gaping silence, for the singer had disappeared. He simply vanished, as if he had gone slap through the floor without leaving a hole. The local hobbits stared in amazement, and then sprang to their feet and shouted for Barliman. All the company drew away from Pippin and Sam, who found themselves left alone in a corner, and eyed darkly and doubtfully from a distance. It was plain that many people regarded them now as the companions of a traveling magician of unknown powers and purpose. But there was one swarthy Bree-lander who stood looking at them with a knowing and half-mocking expression that made them feel very uncomfortable. Presently he slipped out of the door, followed by the squint-eyed southerner. The two had been whispering together a good deal during the evening. Frodo felt a fool. Not knowing what else to do, he crawled away under the tables to the dark corner by Strider, who sat unmoved, giving no sign of his thoughts. Frodo leaned against the wall and took off the ring. How it came to be on his finger he could not tell. He could only suppose that he had been handling it in his pocket while he sang, and that somehow it had slipped on when he stuck out his hand with a jerk to save his fall. For a moment he wondered if the ring itself had not played him a trick. Perhaps it had tried to reveal itself in response to some wish or command that was felt in the room. He did not like the looks of the men that had gone out. "Well," said Strider when he reappeared, "why did you do that? Worse than anything your friends could have said. You have put your foot in it, or should I say your finger." "I don't know what you mean," said Frodo, annoyed and alarmed. "Oh, yes, you do," answered Strider. "But we had better wait until the uproar has died down. Then, if you please, Mr. Baggins, I should like a quiet word with you." "What about?" asked Frodo, ignoring the sudden use of his proper name. "As a matter of some importance to both of us," answered Strider, looking Frodo in the eye. You may hear something to your advantage." Very well, said Frodo, trying to appear unconcerned. I'll talk to you later. Meanwhile, an argument was going on by the fireplace. Mr. Butterbur had come trotting in, and he was now trying to listen to several conflicting accounts of the event at the same time. I saw him, Mr. Butterbur, said a hobbit. Or, leastways, I didn't see him, if you take my meaning. He just vanished into thin air, in a manner of speaking. You don't say, Mr. Mugwort, said the landlord, looking puzzled. Yes, I do, replied Mugwort, and I mean what I say. What's more, there's some mistake somewhere, said Mr. Butterbur, shaking his head. There was too much of that Mr. Underhill to go vanishing into thin air, or into thick air, as is more likely in this room. Well, where is he now? Cried several voices. How should I know? He's welcome to go where he will, so long as he pays in the morning. There's Mr. Took now. He's not vanished. Well, I saw what I saw, and I saw what I didn't, said Mugwort obstinately. And I say there's some mistake, repeated Butterbur, picking up the tray and gathering up the broken crockery. Of course there's a mistake, said Frodo. I haven't vanished. Here I am. I've just been having a few words with Strider in the corner. He came forward into the firelights, but most of the company backed away, even more perturbed than before. They were not in the least satisfied by his explanation that he had crawled away quickly under the table after he had fallen. Most of the hobbits and the men of Bree went off then and there in a huff, having no fancy for further entertainment that evening. One or two gave Frodo a black look and departed, muttering among themselves. The dwarves and the 2 or 3 strange men that still remained got up and said good night to the landlord, but not to Frodo and his friends. Before long, no one was left but Strider, who sat on, unnoticed by the wall. Mr. Butterbur did not seem much put out. He reckoned, very probably, that his house would be full again on many future nights. Until the present mystery had been thoroughly discussed. Now, what have you been doing, Mr. Underhill? He asked. Frightening my customers and breaking up my crocks with your acrobats. I am very sorry to have caused any trouble, said Frodo. It was quite unintentional, I assure you. A most unfortunate accident. All right, Mr. Underhill. But if you're going to do any more tumbling or conjuring or whatever that was, you best warn folk beforehand. And warn me. We're a bit suspicious round here of anything out of the way. Uncanny, if you understand me. And we don't take to it all of a sudden. I shan't be doing anything of that sort again, Mr. Butterbur. I promise you. And now I think I'll be getting to bed. We shall be making an early start. Will you see that our ponies are ready by 8 o'clock? Very good. But before you go, I should like a word with you in private, Mr. Underhill. Something has just come back to my mind that I ought to tell you. I hope that you'll not take it amiss. When I've seen a thing or two, I'll come along to your room, if you're willing. Certainly, said Frodo, but his heart sank. He wondered how many private talks he would have before he got to bed, and what they would reveal. Were these people all in league against him? He began to suspect even old Butterbur's fat face of concealing dark designs. All right, wow. And that is the end of chapter 9. So this chapter I feel is a little shorter than others. Hasn't even been an hour. Most of the chapters that I read, they generally run like an hour and a half to 2 hours long. So this one was a bit shorter. It's probably for the best. I was actually running late today because I had to do my taxes. And that was a little exhausting, if I'm being honest. I don't know how many of you guys have to do taxes, but they kind of suck. I'm not too fond of them. So, man, this one's asleep. I think I'm probably going to head out soon. But I do want to thank everybody who joined me for this reading. I know it's not as exciting as some of my other streams, like when I do video games. But I do love to read, and I think more people should, honestly. You know, especially guys. Like, I know generally speaking, while there are a lot of dudes who like to read, I do feel like a lot of us are less inclined. Like, many of us, you know, we like to play video games, we watch TV. You know, I love watching anime and playing my gacha games. So I'm totally with everyone, but I think reading is a very important skill to have, and people should be doing it more for pleasure than for any accruing of information. This guy, he is out like a light. I might join him in a bit. I'm honestly super tired. I didn't get a whole lot of sleep last night, you know. I think I mentioned it, I got like maybe 3 hours of sleep. This one was up most of the night too. Oh, sorry, did I wake you? Hang on a sec, I'm gonna flip the camera. To this guy, oh my gosh. And see here, he is just done. Yeah, he is so out of it. What's going on there? Oh, there we go. Alright. Well, this is a bit of a short stream, but thank you guys for joining me. Tomorrow, if I decide to stream, I will be doing a video game instead. We'll probably be playing Where Winds Meet. But I might try something else just in case. I'll see what new updates there are for some of the games I'm playing. And if there's anything new, I might try that. But if not, I might stick with Where Winds Meet for now, at least. It's one of those games that are really confusing. I don't actually know quite what the game is about, and there's a lot of systems to learn in the game, so it's not my favorite, if I'm being honest. It looks fun, and I feel like it could be fun if I figured out more about it, but I don't really understand it too well. Anyways, I don't know how many of you are still here, but if you are, Raven, Die Anime, Joestar, unless you really cave on Doll's Nest. Unless I cave on Doll's Nest. Now, you did tell me that I can create a Marin Kitagawa, so maybe I'll cave. We don't know. Honestly, I don't want to add too many games to my list. You know, there's already a lot of games that I am playing. So I think if I add any more, it's just going to become unmanageable. And I'm never going to have time to finish any of the games I'm currently playing right now. So we'll see what I do tomorrow. I might just play Doll's Nest vicariously through you instead. But thank you for joining me, Raven. I don't know if Yuri is here, but if he is, thank you for joining me. Tin Can as well, if Tin Can is here. Do appreciate the joke. I figured you weren't being super serious. But yeah, I think I'm gonna join my cat and take a quick nap. maybe even just like a 30-minute nap, so I can feel a little bit refreshed because I haven't slept much. So you guys enjoy the rest of your day. Hope it's a good one. Hope you don't have to work too hard. And I will see you all. And I will see you all tomorrow. So, peace out, you guys.